But I think it's probably time to ask Beth some questions.
I reckon so.
Mm.
Beth,
Yeah, go on.
it's time. You can escape no longer. What is
Let's
the
go for it.
first book you remember reading and enjoying?
I honestly, I can't remember the first book I read for myself because I've been reading since about 4. So it was probably something like, The Ragtag Tiger or something. But the first big girl book, it's probably something like the Last Unicorn. Yeah, because I read that quite young, and it was very, very affecting.
What about it affected you?
I was so sad.
It's a really sad story, isn't it?
It is. It's just like I haven't gone back to it really because I was just a bit traumatized. But things like that. And my mum used to read us stuff when I was, when we were going to bed, and so she'd read me. And my brother is about 4 years older, so we're like very different kind of levels there. But she'd read us Greek myths, Jane Austen, and The Hobbit, and so it's just got this really weird eclectic mix of things just pulled at random off the shelf and go, God, Greek myths are not really that child friendly.
No, they sort of they've escaped sanitization to a large degree, haven't they?
Apart from the whole "they were friends" thing.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things that happens in these kind of things. And they were good friends. They were the most famous good friends in all of Greece.
They were buried together because they were real buds. Just two real
ride
strong
or die. Ride or die.
And I really hope we get buried together, bro.
Oh, that's still happening. I went around the HMS Victory the other day in Portsmouth, and the audio guide has Nelson's death. And of course, one of the things that he says when he's dying is, "Kiss me, Hardy," who's his the captain of his ships, and he has been 5 times. And they sort of even the narrator kind of like sort of chokes on it a little bit and says, and then Hardy kissed him on the forehead and the cheek, and then they shook hands, and then he left. It's just wild. This like. Sanitization and
weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
The have you seen the animated movie of The Last Unicorn?
I haven't. No.
I think I've seen clips.
It's it's somehow weirder than the book, partly because it's got Christopher Lee in it, and also because the music's done by the band America, who did the song "Horse with No Name."
Oh.
Yeah. I think I remember that, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of. Was it coming out around the same time as Watership Down, which was going full acid trip on the bunnies? Because if it was, then I mean that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely got that vibe. I mean, that stuff like the unicorns being the white bits on the tops of waves and all that. It's all very odd. And the big bull. It's it's a fun one.
I
don't know.
Christopher Lee though. That's I guess he had so many credits to his name, didn't he?
Beyond hundreds, yeah. Right, can't talk about The Last Unicorn, the movie. That's not what we're here for. What gives you satisfaction when you're writing?
That's a tricky question because I find a lot of writing fairly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I have like ADHD and my brain just doesn't always obey. At least I think I do. I haven't been officially diagnosed, but I'm pretty certain. And I just, when I'm writing, it either comes all at once or really slowly. So when it comes all at once, it's great fun because you just sit there and you're almost like automatic writing. It just sort of flows through you. And, like when you say, where do the ideas come from? God knows. They're like, it's almost like you're channeling a story out of you, or exercising a story out of you, and then it's all down to like editing and stuff like that. And it's like when you finally get something that you can get past your crit circle, that's satisfying because they are very, very, very good at picking up any of the tiniest little things that you were like, oh, hope they don't notice that. Of course, they notice that.
So it's actually the end point for you. The big satisfying moment is, oh, this is a thing. I've made a thing now, a completed thing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously you get lots of little points along the way, like just being able to put in a phrase that you're particularly smug about.
Yeah.
That's always fun, but it doesn't always mean that will be the making of a story. The making of a story is the end point, and it's difficult for me.
So when it's sort of dragging, when you haven't got that automatic writing thing going, like we sort of try and demystify a little bit. So do you have any like tips for people on how you manage to just buckle down and do the work when you are struggling against attention issues?
Change of environment, always good. Go to a cafe if you like doing writing at cafes, or go to a library, or go somewhere else that's not your usual sit down. And because it's just something about changing where you physically are can change you mentally, and then that can sometimes be enough. Another good tip is to try a few exercises to unblock. And then the third good tip, I think, is to just sometimes put a timer on, put your music on, whatever you like to put, to just block out all the extraneous channels, and use the timer to be your motivation, really. And sometimes it's just like you're sitting there for 10 minutes out of 20, and then you're like, nothing's happening. And then you're like, oh, it's going down. And then you're like, oh, just do something. And then that sometimes can just unplug it.
I really agree with that. I've absolutely loved in NaNoWriMo last year. We got really into doing sprints, didn't we, Ben?
Yes, very much so.
And you don't write. You can't guarantee you're going to write your best stuff. But when you're just trying to like, I need to get words onto a page, and then I can go back and make it good. It's such a good tool, especially when you're doing it. And we were terrible for this competitively. When it's like, so how many did you write?
Yeah, having a writing partner or someone to keep you accountable, yeah, that definitely does kind of up the stakes enough, I think, sometimes for you to go, well, I actually have to do this now.
Do you ever sort of a lot of that was to do with upping the stakes to a certain degree? So do you have any issue dealing with the pressure? Like, if do you ever get to a point where you put too much pressure on yourself and you just can't do it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, but I'm at this enviable part of my career where no one's actually asking any deadlines of me at the moment. So it's like I've never felt too much pressure to do anything, and that's actually probably a part of my problem. It's like if someone was saying, "Oh no, you need to get the next 1,000 words done by the end of the week," I would do them at 4 o'clock on a Friday. You know. So probably having some deadlines would actually help me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really full answer. I like that. Thank you.
We'll send you arbitrary ones just out of the blue. We'll email you, be like, hope you've got those 10,000 words done.
Yes, please. Yeah,
So,
no, actually.
This sounds like a chargeable service that we could do to the writing community. Just do email blasts reminding them that they've got 20 minutes to write 500 words.
It would probably work for some people.
For some people, yeah, and then I think other people would quite quickly tell us to go and fuck ourselves. So
can't wait. So
only because you like doing that, I guess.
How do you know when the book that you're writing at the time is done? Where's your end point?
Well, I guess when you submit it, like if you have somewhere to send it, then you have to really make sure that you're comfortable sending it. So that's the final endpoint for me, is like, okay, I'm going to submit this. Sometimes I'll print out like two or more pages to an A4, print out the entire thing, which is a lot of wasted paper, I have to say. I don't do it that often, but when I'm final checking, and I will actually read it out loud to myself, which takes some time, but it really helps to make you think, oh wait, am I comfortable with that? And it can really help find out where the gaps are, help you just be comfortable. Okay, it's ready now.
I think that's really cool. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of paper, but as you say, reading it out can often expose something that just reading it on a screen or even just reading it on paper doesn't reveal. I like that. I think we get that quite a lot with this podcast, because obviously we are writing to perform it as well. So they are short stories, but there is always a performance aspect because we know we're going to be performing it when we're writing it.
Yeah.
So I definitely read mine out loud to myself at least a couple of times during the drafting process to try and find where I'm going to trip, what I thought was going to work but sounds clunky, etc.
And like it will work for people reading it at the end product as well. They will have a smoother ride.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? That I'm surprised every time, which I shouldn't be by now, but you start reading a sentence out and you suddenly realise that like the tense feels wrong, or that word, it almost feels like it's pointing in the wrong direction. And it seems fine on the page written down, and it isn't until you vocalize it. So I think it is a good tool. It sounds like I've never done it, printed out a whole book and read it to myself, but you're gonna make me up my game.
Well, if you're writing, sometimes you can get the computer to read it to you as well. That's a little bit of the thing. If you're doing sort of, I want to review as I write, as opposed to wait until the end and then going back, then just getting the computer to, in its horrible, horrible voice sometimes, read it back, you'll catch things that you just didn't see on the page.
That's a real savage move. I like that one because because they're going to put no inflection. The computer's not going to put any inflection on it. It's not going to soften anything. So it's going to be really raw. What's coming out of that process? So oh man, that you could.
Reader, I married him.
Oh, fantastic.
Right, go on. Let's do one of the hard ones.
Oh.
What is your favourite novel?
That is hard. I could be pretentious and say Moby Dick, but I can't even pull that off, honestly.
If it is Moby Dick, then feel free. We can talk about Moby Dick, but whatever it's what jumped into your mind straight away.
Well, probably the ones I keep going back to, which is Terry Pratchett. But then you'd asking me which one to pick, and that's just like,
You're in the squad now, though.
It'd probably be one of the Witcher's ones, but which one? Not the first one, because he was still kind of feeling his way.
Equal Right's got like a primordial soup vibe to it, hasn't it?
He was still sort of the characters were still a bit crunchy. That's the word I'm going to use.
He'd at least put veg in the primordial soup by then. Colour of Magic is an empty cauldron.
Yeah, that's quite right. He definitely developed a long way, but then he wrote so many. Probably I like the one where she meets her sister. I can't remember what it's called.
That is Witches Abroad, I think.
Witches Abroad. Yeah, it's pretty good. Some of the things in there might. Oh, the one with the vampires.
Carpe Jugulum.
Yeah.
That's a very strong one.
That's pretty strong for me.
I think that one's quite good in terms of the way that he explores the concepts of vampirism with like vampires. I liked that. It sort of had a bit of a fresh perspective.
And and it was always just full of his brilliant stuff like, I do not drink sarcastic pause wine. Oh, sorry, was it sarcastic pause vine?
Vine, yeah.
Vine, yeah.
Yeah. I remember occasionally, because he wrote so many books, there was the occasional one that I missed the first time I was reading through them, just because my local library didn't have them or whatever. And Carpe Jugulum was one of those ones, so I actually got to read that much later, and really, and find it fresh. And I was reading it when everybody else in my, class and that kind of thing were reading Twilight.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a particularly good developmental stage to be reading that at, because they sort of ducked the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else
I
is
know which
ahead of
I'd prefer myself,
Yeah,
and that's not to say that you can't have your own tastes.
of course.
Listen, all we're asking is Seattle or Uberwald. Where do you want to go?
Do they have Starbucks in Uberwald?
No, but you can get eaten by a werewolf if you want, which is that'll wake you up in the morning.
Absolutely.
Right, let's go. I'm going to be nice again.
Oh, thank you.
Do you listen to music when you're writing? And if you do, what genre do you prefer?
Sometimes I have to listen to something, and it has to be ambient wordless, because if I listen to words, they start distracting me from writing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that song. So ambient Spotify deep focus playlist or something ridiculous like that. And or music that I've listened to so many times that I don't hear it.
Okay.
Just a trick I got from when I was coding in a web design company. Because there was someone who would insist on talking to me whilst I coded. I'm like, I can't do this. Please stop. And so you put the headphones on, and it's like, okay, 80s cheese, let's go. And it's loud, and it blocks everything, and it's like quite cheerful, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And I listen to that playlist so many times that I don't hear it anymore, which is great.
So when you say cheerful, is that because you need that because you're writing something dark, or are you trying to put that cheeriness into your writing with the music?
Oh no, I wouldn't put any of the cheeriness into my writing at all. I would use instead to make myself, more motivated, lifted in insight so that I could work on. But yeah, generally it's ambient, so that's boring.
Have you ever tried movie soundtracks? They're quite good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't find that they flow well enough for me because they've got lots of exciting moments.
Yeah, I once tried using Howard Shore's stuff from the Lord of the Rings movies, and inside one song, it'll have like 5 different beats from all the different massive refrain sections in the soundtrack, and you just like this is impossible. You can't maintain a vibe to Howard Shore because he's on fire all the time.
I tend to write comedy, like you saw today. It is really tough, and all of a sudden, like the drums in the deep start, and you're like, no, this is not the mood. I can't go up with a punchline. Gandalf's about to plummet to his doom. Like this is not the one.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, we get a lot of people that don't listen to any music at all when they're writing. And I don't know. I know Nick uses music, and I know you do. I definitely sort of vacillate between using it or not using it, and I couldn't tell you why. Potentially, I don't really know, but I think definitely if I'm trying to get motivated to do it, then a bit of music does help often.
Mm-hmm.
But you never
Yeah,
written something that's specifically about the emotion that you're trying to elicit. It's always separate.
Yeah.
Is that right?
No. I mean, if I want to feel a certain way, then I might put on a certain playlist before I get too much into the writing. Because as I say, I would be distracted by it if it's very good.
Yeah.
So I might put it on beforehand to elicit a mood and then write. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just sounds like the music's for you, not for the story. Yeah. So come on, I've got a good one. What is the least enjoyable trope of fiction for you?
Trying to think now. What all tropes have currently left the building. What is trope? I just.
We've had like love at first sight has been mentioned before, fridging of female characters and stuff. That gets brought up quite a lot.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's just one that bores me. Like, for example, if you do something that I've seen a million times before but done better elsewhere, then yeah, it's just probably not going to fly. Like, oh wow, here's a flying car in a dark but neon lit rainy city, and it don't do it better than Blade Runner, then I'm gonna be like, come on, you know.
Yeah, yeah. This that's sort of the line where things become cliche, isn't it? So if you're writing
Yeah.
punk and you do that, it's almost a bit like wasted breath.
And it's really hard to do anyway, like to follow something that's so well loved. I just, yeah. But I mean, I can't think of any one specific thing because any trope can be used well. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, but that's an interesting outlook. So you reckon something like Love at First Sight, for example, could be used well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd done it in the sort of way where you're just like, oh, here's something, as opposed to just, kind of things that you've read many, many, many times or seen on TV or seen in movies. If you think, oh, that's well done, then it's well done.
That's
So
fair.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry, bit of a non-answer really.
No,
No, that's okay. I quite like that. This idea. I don't think we've ever had someone say that. I enjoyed the angle of every trope can be used well because I mean it does make sense to a certain degree because that's why they're tropes because they must have worked at some point.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
So if you got an unlimited budget, you can
Mhm.
adapt any book
Mhm.
into another medium. What would it be? To which medium and why?
Hmm. Okay, I hadn't come in prepared for this one. So, any book. All right, let's take The Left Hand of Darkness, and we're going to adapt it to musical on ice
Oh,
because I mean, quite a good deal of the book is them on an ice field, and I just feel like there could be lots of romantic scenes between the protagonist and his let's say very good friend.
no,
Nice callback.
just two bros out skating together.
Just two bros.
Just two bros. Yeah.
You could get, you could bring in a sled, um, and some nice sled dogs which nothing bad ever happens to,
But
etc.
if we're gonna get choreographable huskies, we're gonna have to at least let some stick around. Those things are hard to train, very
Mm.
expensive. Oh god, I gave you an unlimited budget. You're about to cause some kind of
Mm.
husky genocide.
Husky genocide. Well, I guess you could make them actors, actors in suits, on all
Oh
fours on
no,
skates. I
oh
mean,
no, not that.
I'm gonna get so much hate mail now. How
Don't
dare you?
Got
send
this
hate
image.
mail to me. I do not like that.
Just got this image of them like lacing their hands into skates in order to be on all fours. Oh, that unsettled me deeply.
The other skates would have to be on their knees.
Yeah.
So do they have like 3 pairs of skates just in case they need to stand up and skate somewhere?
How terrifying would it be if they stood up and they just become like a
Mm.
blade front?
They just weaponize themselves.
I like this already. I think this
I'm
would have.
actually assuming there was huskies. I can't remember now.
We can just add them in.
Yeah.
As Nico said, unlimited budget. May as well have huskies.
Just just have a giraffe, have whatever you want.
A giraffe on skates. I think I've seen that somewhere. Yes. Oh, I like that one. That was an intriguing
Great
answer.
answer.
Yeah, I think Ursula Le Guin would be proud of that one. I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't happened already.
Well, it may have done actually. I just don't know. We'd have to.
Oh, we'd have heard about the weaponized people in the husky fursuits, mate.
Mhm.
when they get out. Daniel
So-
I'm
Day-Lewis,
I'm sure somebody in the past has given you a serious answer, so I'm just
Never.
making up for that.
So we talked a lot about, the end of writing, but what is your actual process for writing? Are you a pantser? Do you do you take a long time over things, or do you like to pound things out? What's your way? What's your movement?
Depends on the length of the work, obviously, because if you're writing a flash fiction, you can more or less knock one of those out in an afternoon if you've got a strong idea and strong enough sort of vision of the characters. But the hard bit is getting the vision of the characters. It's not the plot. It's not although plot is hard on longer works to keep it interesting, to keep it going. But for me, the hard part is getting the characters to do rational things. Because I have this terrible habit, and I've been picked up for many times, of just in my writer's circle, if it just like things happen or they do things without sufficient explanation, and I've actually twigged that I may be slightly autistic, because that happens to me in my real life. It's like people just do things, and they just for no fucking reason, and things just happen for no fucking reason. Yes, but you can't do that in a story, Beth.
Yeah, you can. Tell them fuck you and your rules.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it ends up being a little bit of a kind of whiplash effect on some of the readers. So I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough. But if you've got a sufficiently developed character, you know their motivations, what they want, what they're after, you can then get them to drive the plot for you. Unfortunately, my characters have a tendency to grab the wheel of what they're driving and go off road. Yeah, it's difficult, but it's quite fun sometimes when the characters take over, because you're like, okay, I know you now, and I know what you'd do next. But then you surprised me. But it's actually working much better than what I had planned, so great. Yeah.
So you end up in a sort of simpatico with your characters. I like that. That's very interesting. When you mentioned when you've got a strong story idea, it just flows. When you've got a strong character vision, it works. Where do these things occur to you? Like we've mentioned a couple of times, like where ideas come from and stuff. But do you have to be sat at a desk or at your computer or whatever in order for those ideas to start to flow? Or are you the kind of person where you get struck by inspiration when you're out walking or in the middle of the night, and then you write it down for a later point?
Definitely the latter, I think, because very much a shower thoughts kind of go.
Shower thoughts are good.
Shower thoughts are great because you're just letting your subconscious kind of take over, because you're not really thinking about necessarily anything structured.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly that's where you get your sort of weird ideas, but then you're like, oh, okay, no, that's the answer actually for what I was thinking. And sometimes I'll just be walking along the road and I'll see a dog, and then an entire plot will just leap into my mind from that dog, or whatever I happen to see, which is what happened to me when I got one of my stories in Strange Horizons, Broken Blue. Literally walked down the road, saw a dog, and then the whole story just kind of came out of that.
Is there a dog in the story?
There is a dog in the story. There's a
part
lot
of
of
me
dogs in my
really
stories.
hoped that there wasn't going to be, and that the dog had either been doing something crazy, or like he'd had a big collar on and his name was like Knifer, and you were like, yeah, I'm going to write a murder mystery. But
I mean, that could happen. That's also something that could happen.
It could go full gas mode and just he could have just told you a story, but because dogs don't talk, it didn't register.
I mean, obviously, when you're doing something and you sing something and something comes into your brain, that's just like a fulcrum for all the thoughts you've been previously processing.
Yeah.
And it's like a clarifying moment. So, for example, I previously, before I'd seen the dog, been researching things about fairy lore and stuff like that, and Scottish myth and things. And then it just turned out that when I saw the dog, the line jumped into my head, I'll go when the dog goes. And that was just like, wow, that's a strong line. I like it. What shall I do with it? Oh, yeah. maybe it's something to do with these fae or fairies or Scottish lore or something like that. No spoilers, but
No spoilers.
it kind of just grew legs.
Is this
Not dog legs.
Yeah, dog legs, yeah. But no ice skates on these ones. So
No. He was firmly on the grass.
so where can people can read this in one of the issues of Strange Horizons? Is that right?
Yeah, it came out in January this year,
Oh,
so
wonderful.
it should still be free online.
Fantastic. So people should definitely check that out. But speaking of things that they should definitely read of yours, where should people start? What's the thing that we want to point them towards to read E.M. Faulds' work?
Oh, definitely the Under the Moon collection. It's available, as I said, on ghostmothpress.com, but also on Amazon if you must, places like that.
Yeah.
But if you buy direct in the UK, if you buy the physical book directly from ghostmothpress.com, it works out better for everybody because you don't get the sort of Amazon delivery markups. You don't get other things on there as well, and the margins are better for the publisher.
Yeah.
So you're actually benefiting a small business as opposed to a massive business that is ruling the entire planet.
It's
but up
so
to
necessary. It's so necessary to be doing that because I think it's almost it's a very difficult habit to break. Just being able to one click and you can buy it on Amazon. But actually, if you just take like 5 more seconds just to see who published it and see if there's a more sort of ethical way to consume that media, then it's always worth doing. But you've also got this your novel Ada King, right?
And that's only on Amazon, I'm afraid, because I was writing it at the time when before I had met any publisher.
Fair. Oh, so you self-published it?
I self-published that one. But yeah, it did pretty well on its own, but it would have probably been better to actually have gone through the whole process and tried to get it out mainstream, but that's what happened. I got very impatient and decided to bung it out myself. But I don't think it's one of those things where you think, oh, it's self-published. But it's actually it's an all right book, I think.
That's a glowing endorsement. I'm sure it's more than all right.
Yeah, a bit high praise that. Come on, guys.
From me talking about my own work.
Have you got anything else on the horizon?
On the horizon, I've got a few things on submission, but nothing that I can talk about just yet.
I was going to say, like, often people say, I can't really talk about it, but that's very cool that there's stuff going on for you. I'm really glad to hear that because it's I really enjoyed your story earlier, and I can really feel that you are absolutely in love with telling stories, which I'm always up for supporting.
Thank you very much, and yeah, it's great having this podcast. I mean, what a concept!
Thank you, very kind. We've been quite lucky, I think, that it's going very well, and that we both still love doing it. I think this will be episode like 94 or 93, something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah, we just every week we turn up and love it. It's fantastic.
So, if any of our lovelies out there who do listen want to find you online and, I don't know, say nice things to you or, just ask you how horrible we were in real life off mic, where can people find you online?
Well, if you go to emfaulds.com, that's got a link to everything that I use, social media, and there's a newsletter and all sorts of nonsense like that. So please do go. And I'm very happy to talk to anybody who's got a genuine question. Absolutely, please do come and join in. But wonderful. Yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter. But my handle's not my author names, so don't look for that. Go to the EM Faulds. That's Echo Motel. What is it?
Motel. That's a good one. Mike, I think it is.
Echo Mike FAULDS.com.
That's Foxtrot Alpha Uniform Lima
Delta and Sierra. Yeah.
No, I think we confused people there, but that's fine. EM Faulds.
Let's add other things.
That has actually happened to me once, where I spelt something phonetically and they started going, "Your name is ECHO." No, Echo is not my name. It's oh my god, it was very embarrassing.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. Thank you for taking the time to not only join us, but also to write something and chat with us about our stories as well. It's so validating to be able to talk to someone like you about stories. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
I'm absolutely 100% flattered and grateful to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we'll see you again.
We opened the window. We freed Ian Faulds. Look, flapping away.
Bye.
Not the power lines.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?